Hello and welcome to this special coverage of the ongoing situation in Turkey after Friday's failed attempted coup, where I'm joined in what is an exclusive interview with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the capital Ankara, in his first ever live interview to be broadcast on an international network. Mr. President, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. I want to start by asking about the events of last Friday. We've heard many conflicting reports of what exactly went down, when you found out, how you found out that you had missed or managed to rescue yourself from a possible assassination attempt by just a few minutes. Could you tell us the details of what exactly went down on that fateful evening, please?
Öncelikle tabii çok teşekkür ediyorum. Şu anda ekranların başında.
Thank you very much to all those who are listening to us on the screens at the moment. From Turkey, from Ankara, and send them also all my greetings and love from the bottom of my heart. I went to Marmaris for a 4 or 5 days holiday just on the day, and of course after I arrived there I have received the news with regards to this failed attempted coup. Of course we have kept in touch with our colleagues and friends and all the relevant people, and after I have found out what was what, I have made a press declaration and in which I said that nobody need to worry, and Turkish people have been asked, or we thought it would be asked to ask Turkish people to go and occupy the town square, streets, town squares and city squares that they have been living. And Turkey is a country where 52% of the people have voted for a government. It's a legitimate government, and those who wanted to topple the government and take over the country by using force, I thought it would be best to get people to respond to their acts. And I have noticed that people actually, after we have announced, we have asked people to go onto town squares and city squares that they live in.
Before we go to the people's reaction, there's one detail that a lot of people are asking about. Who told you about this coup? Because today we heard that one of your MPs from the AK party said that it wasn't the head of the intelligence agency that told you, and that the head of the intelligence agency knew 4 hours before it happened, from 4 p.m. and didn't know. Who told you about it? And also, how did you manage to land safely in Istanbul?
Of course, we have learned certain things later, but at first instance, my brother-in-law have actually informed me. But when I heard this at first instance, I didn't really think of it seriously. But once it was verified through the various channels and through intelligence, following this, we have taken the necessary steps, and I was at the time with the energy minister myself, and we have taken certain steps to leave the hotel safely. We went to Dalaman from there, and then our plane have taken off from Dalaman to Istanbul. And of course, I had some difficulties in Istanbul as well when I arrived in Istanbul. But of course, those difficult times become reality in a sort of unexpected way, especially when we saw the F-16's low flights over the city, and also the noise they made, and also there are tens of thousands of people who actually gathered in the squares of the city. We just then had to make a quick assessment of the situation, and then we took few further steps to take everything under control, and in a short time, we have taken everything under control.
Gelişmelerle birlikte de
Uh,
bizler tabii
Together with all these developments, which there was one thing we paid particular attention,
bunlarla da edinilmiş tecrübe.
because we had in the past some experience of similar incidents like the Gezi protest and so forth. So
İşte birinci ordu komutanımızın yaptığı açıklama.
we have spoken to some of the generals and also head commanders of the
Süreci kontrol altına
Turkish military, and they have actually helped a lot for us to
So
take everything under
what I want
control
to ask you
and
then,
regain.
following those events, when we're talking now about what you have done in terms of reaction, not just the popular reaction of the people, but you've carried out, or your government and authorities have carried out arrests of more than 10,000 people. You came out on television and said this was not a military coup, but it was an attempt by a small section within the military to overthrow democracy. Rounding up 10,000 people isn't a small number.
Şimdi tabii bu askerin içinde ne
Yes,
kadar
of
bir
course, within the military,
sayısı olarak
how many of those people are organized themselves
olduğu belli. Bu azınlık
is not clear, but it is clear they are a minority.
dediğimiz öyle. Şimdi bu
This organization that we call a terrorist organization is try to make the minority dominate the
engelleme imkanını
majority.
ve bunu yakaladık,
And we have actually
kontrol ederek işi bitirdik.
taken all the steps to prevent
Sorry to
such
our viewers,
unfortunate
we're
event,
going to have
and
to
we have
just,
dealt with
take
it
a very short commercial break, if that's possible, in Doha. Something has just come up. We will be back with you very shortly. Please do stay tuned, both on Al Jazeera English and Al Jazeera Arabic and across the network. We will be back with you very shortly indeed.
Well, we've broken away there from that interview, as you saw, Jamal Al-Shayal speaking to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. We can now take you live back to Ankara, where that interview, that live interview with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will now resume.
Hello and welcome back to this exclusive live interview from the capital of Turkey, Ankara, with His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Unfortunately, we had to go on a short break there for emergency reasons. We can now continue. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. President. I know it is very tight at the moment. I want to resume by asking you about this current coup attempt. How is it that something that was so well planned, well thought out, that involved not only the army but the judiciary and other things, as your authorities have claimed by arresting these people, how is it that something like that could happen without your intelligence services preempting it, being aware about it?
Şimdi tabii burada bir istihbarat zaafı olduğu ne yazık ki
Of course, there is in a nation of the intelligence,
maalesef
it is obvious, unfortunately. If we had the proper intelligence about it, of course, such thing wouldn't have been possible by Fethullah terrorist organizations.
zaafları yoktur diye bir şey yok. Yani her
Of course, nobody can say that none of the intelligence organizations around the world have no weakness or innovations. But this, we have seen examples of this in the USA, in Russia, in Europe, and we still see this happen around the world. Of course, it's not
gücümüzün çok daha güçlü olması.
easy to always to put this right. Of course, it is difficult to always pinpoint where are the weak areas or innovations within any intelligence organizations.
Teknolojiden öte
But-
insan unsurunun
But
insani
in intelligence,
çok daha önemli olduğu.
what is more important is the human factor is more important than the technology, in my opinion, because this is what
Olaylara
makes everything possible. So when we now go back to the incidents on the 15th of July, Fethullah terrorist organization had a parallel organization within the state, and every step they have taken in making the attempt to failed coup. I don't think we have come to the end of it yet, and in the days and weeks ahead, I'm sure that they have some of their own sort of ideas and plans as to how to go about their own future. Of course, as long as the state and the public are hand in hand, of course, these kind of people, these kind of organizations cannot do anything to the public or the people. The tanks could not get resolved to them and did not get resolved to them because the people
This remarkable or unprecedented show of unity, I will come back to it in a couple of questions, but I want to ask something on the issue of arrests. How was it that you were able, if you didn't see this coup happening, how was it that you were able to find so quickly all these culprits? I mean, all these thousands of people. What kind of evidence did you have with regards to rounding up these people? Or are you just questioning them now? What is it that allowed you to act so swiftly?
We have to look at the back, and we have so many suspects and so many suspicions. But of course, there are rules and regulations which prevent you from doing so many things. When I say this, I'm talking about we were aware that there were some people who would take part in such attempt if it was ever such attempts have been made. And of course, we also know how they are connected and where their connections are. But and also, this was known by the judiciary as well. We had relevant intelligence with regards to these things. They were all documented. And so now we have all those information, as I said. Now the judiciary is now arrested them and detaining them. And the police forces have carried out certain investigations, and also police intelligence as well as the national intelligence institutions are working together, and they have obtained so many credible documents. As of now, 9,400 people have been arrested, and 1,933 people are detained. And of course, that doesn't mean we have come to the end of it. And I believe that all these detentions and arrests will provide us with many names in the coming days. And within the law, because we are a country where the law is upheld, and we are a democratic country, within the law, the judiciary will function its own work, and the information the judiciary will obtain will be used. For example, there are people actually who started to admit what their intentions were and how they work. And of course, they said also that they had connections
because of
with the many.
These mass arrests, your allies or supposed allies like France and the United States and either their governments or leading media outlets there have been very critical of you. In fact, they say that, yes, you know, while they were against the coup, they believe that you, or they accuse you rather, of not being democratic either. What is your response to that? Particularly, we heard scathing remarks by France's foreign minister right after. And they're meant to be your allies.
Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, I don't know what what he said, but there is only one thing I will say. Within a very short period of time, in the face of the terrorist acts in France, France, of course, took numerous steps and took a certain stance. Did they not detain people en masse? Did they not arrest people in very high numbers? We cannot deny those situations. And 3 months ago, they had an emergency state. It was three months initially. It was then prolonged another 3 months, and then another additional 3 months for the peace and tranquility of the country, obviously. Now, an attempted coup, is it a crime or not? It's a crime. So if an attempted coup is a crime, then whose responsibility is it to catch the culprits? Well, the state. The state will apprehend these people and hand them over to the judiciary. In a country with the rule of law, the judiciary, after due process and trial, if they find people guilty, then they impose the necessary punishments on them. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, if he had those comments about me personally, it's a big mistake. I mean, he should first mind his own business. Does he have the authority to make these declarations about my person? No, he does not. If he wants to have a lesson in democracy, he can very easily get a lesson in democracy from us. The Roma people in their country, in France, they were expulsing those people out of their country. They were sending those people away. So what kind of a think tank did they have in terms of human rights? I think that was a clear example. But in Turkey, we have 3 million Syrians and Iraqis. We are welcoming those people. So nobody should try to teach us lessons on this point. Currently, we're simply trying to find out who got involved in this attempted coup. We are detaining those people, and the state is simply taking the steps it is supposed to take.
We'll come back to international reaction once again later, but I want to talk to you about the one thing that you brought up, which was this show of unity. It's no secret that Turkish political society has been very divided over the past few years. In fact, probably more polarized than it has been in a long time prior to this coup. But when we saw tanks roll out into the streets, we saw an unprecedented show of unity. We saw the head of the CHP, MHP, NGOs, those are the main two opposition parties, NGOs, everybody came together against the coup. Will you be using this opportunity? Not only actually, even the media, for example, CNN Turk, which you have criticized yourself and other outlets, they came out against this coup as well. Will you be using this opportunity to try and usher in a new era whereby the situation in Turkey is not so tense, whereby there will be greater collaboration between the different political parties, between yourself and your opponents?
Well, we are not a movement that is far and removed from collaboration. Those that insult us find the right to insult us in them, but they should allow allow us to be critical of the people that insult us. It is our right of criticism, and we have never insulted anyone, and we will never do so. We are simply trying to do everything within the boundaries of law. That has always been the case. Now, we lost 246 innocent people, including those that were unfortunately squashed by tanks. We have 1,500 injured. And given that this is the scale of the events that happened, how can these people continue to say things like Erdogan is this, Erdogan is that, Erdogan is a dictator, or Erdogan is not democratic?
We saw, for example, you thanked the opposition and you thanked the parliament for standing against this coup. Would it be far-fetched to imagine or to see maybe in the near future some sort of joint meeting with yourself and leaders of the opposition parties? Because Turkey is under serious threat, not just from the coup, but from Syria.
Of course, there is no obstacle to that. We can always do it. Our Prime Minister did it. And I would be more than happy to make these kinds of calls and organize these kinds of meetings, because that is the joint problem of our nation, of our country. We cannot turn our backs on these problems, and I am the president of this nation. So coming together with all of those people would be an honor for me, no problem whatsoever.
Yesterday, we heard very interesting developments, which was that the two pilots who were responsible for downing the Russian jet last year, that they were arrested in relation to this coup. Does this mean that when they downed the Russian jet last year, they acted without direct orders?
Well, I think the judiciary might have had this doubt because those two pilots are now in detention. So the judiciary started that process.
You've clearly pointed the finger at Fethullah Gulen, and you say it is his movement who is behind this. Till now, he is still in the US. If the US does not accept your request to extradite him, what will this mean for Turkish-US relations? Particularly when you're talking about the base of Incirlik here, the US using that, how strategic it is. What will happen if they refuse?
Bunları oralara kaydırmak bana göre
Well,
çok örtüşen
in my
şeyler değil.
opinion,
Yani
bringing
buralarda,
those two issues together is
çok da
not the best
hassas
thing, is
olmak
not the
gerekiyor.
right thing to do. I think we need to be more sensitive because the relations between states are not based on emotions, are not based on feelings. It's the reason and the intellect that should come to the forefront in relations between the states. If that's not done, of course, that would be a huge mistake. Therefore, we will be providing all of the documents, all of the evidence to the United States via our ministers. We've started that process of sending all of that over to the United States. And then we will wait for the decisions of the authorized instances of the United States courts, of course. And we are strategic partners. We have a model partnership, and we have to continue our solidarity because our solidarity should not be very short term. We have a very long history of relations and ties. We have very common points with the United States, and I do believe that in the upcoming process, they will be speedily taking the necessary
I
steps.
understand these are very sensitive times. There is a cabinet meeting taking place and so many other things. So again, I apologize to our viewers. We are going to go to another short break. We will continue and pick up on some of the main issues that the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has spoken about and bringing you the latest in the developments here in Turkey. So please do stay with us. We will be back with you very shortly indeed.
Thanks, Jamal. Well, as you heard Jamal saying there, we've come to another interruption in that interview. President Erdogan called away again to another phone call. We will resume just as soon as he is able to. And a tribunal investigating mass killings in Indonesia in the 60s has... OK, we're going to interrupt there and take you straight back now to Ankara, where President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will resume that live interview.
Welcome back to the third part of this exclusive interview with Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, brought to you live across the Al Jazeera network from the capital, Ankara. Mr. President, before we went off onto the break, I asked you about the two pilots who brought down the Russian jet. I wanted to follow up on that, which was right after that incident, I interviewed then Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, and he told me that there were orders given, not specifically for this incident, but the order, it was an open order for anybody who intervenes or crosses over into Turkish territory, that they should be shot down. Why then did this happen if you're saying they are now arrested? Did the plane genuinely go into Turkish territory, or were they too quick? Did they skip the chain of command? What is it that led them to act in this way, or why are they being arrested for this incident?
Şu anda hava sahasına girişleriyle alakalı
Well,
olarak orada...
when it concerns their entry into the airfield, yes, it happened. The Turkish airfield airspace was violated, and warnings were issued repeatedly as a result of that violation, and that violation continued back in that incident. But when, of course, the questionings are going to take place, we still don't know if, this event or their affiliations had anything to do with that. Maybe, but they might still have ties with Pennsylvania, these pilots, these people in pretrial detention. Of course, the judiciary will do its best to question these people in detention, so those people might have ties with that group. However, there is, at the time, we don't have any clear evidence that it is tied with Russian planes or the Russian plane incident. But what is clear is that since these individuals took part in this attempted coup, since they acted against their own citizens, their own nation, the Turkish Grand National Assembly, our parliament, they bombarded the parliament, their people. They similarly bombarded the presidential complex. and they similarly attacked the offices of the prime minister. So those kinds of people, you can expect everything from them. I mean, imagine a scenario where they have tanks, using those tanks to roll over their people, their own people, and they smashed vehicles and cars using tanks. So those people, you can expect everything from them. And at the end of the day, they hopped on a helicopter and they fled from Turkey into Greece. And they looked for other ways of fleeing and getting out of the country. So this is the approach and attitude they have, and their understanding of religion is also very different. I'll give you an example. The individual in Pennsylvania, the head of the terrorist organization, they think that that individual is closer to them than their artery, than their main artery in their bodies. So this is simply an insult, and it's a heresy as per our religion, because the only thing that's closer to us than our arteries is Allah Almighty and nothing else. There can be no other person or no other presence that's closer to us. So they have this distorted understanding of religion. So they are now starting to break down, and the process will continue, but we will remain within the boundaries of the law, and we simply want what is necessary to be done. And we will remain within the democratic parliamentary system. We will never step back or move away from it. However, for the peace of our nation and for the unity and solidarity of this country, whatever is necessary, then it will be done.
On the US-Turkish relations as well, a very quick question here, which is, John Kerry had warned that Turkish membership of NATO, Turkey being the second largest military in NATO after the US, would be under threat if it continues, according to his words, to act in this way in terms of cracking down on people and stuff. And obviously there's talk of you possibly bringing back the death penalty, as has been a wide-scale demand by a cross-section of society. I must say, we've spoken to people on the streets, which would also affect or essentially kill any idea of you possibly entering the European Union. With regards to Kerry's statements, what's your reaction? And would you be willing to sacrifice membership of the EU in favor of bringing back the death penalty?
Well, John Kerry then negated all of those words. The embassy here in Turkey refuted those expressions and those statements. And when it comes to NATO, NATO has made it very clear, very loud and clear, that they are with us, that they are on our side. Secretary General Mr. Stoltenberg made that very clear. He called me, we had a discussion on the phone, and we also had a phone conversation with President Obama. And President Obama told me that he was on our side. They were on our side against this attempted coup, that they were supporting our democratic fight. And we had all of those conversations and discussions, so that is out of the question. And those are just made-up statements, and my kind request would be that our people in front of their TVs should not believe these fake statements. People in Doha or people watching the broadcast in English, but also similarly people here in Turkey following the Turkish broadcast should never believe those fake statements. They are not the truth. They do not reflect the truth. We
and with
always
regards to bringing back the death penalty, are you willing to pay that price of never entering the EU in favor of that?
Well, about this issue, I would like to say the following. The authority that will make the decision is not just me. The people have voiced this demand. The people have taken to the streets and they kept saying capital punishment, and capital punishment. But the instance that will make the decision is the parliament, is the Turkish Grand National Assembly. If the parliament makes that decision, then the duty of the authority, the power, is to pave the way for this punishment to be reinstated, reintroduced. If the parliament makes that decision and forwards it to me for approval, I will approve it. I already made that statement, I already made that clear. But one point has to be mentioned. The world is not simply the European Union, right? The European Union is 27 or 28 member states. Do you have the capital punishment or death penalty in the US, in Russia, in China? And in many other countries of the world, yes. Well, if there's a discussion of this in Turkey, why are people bothered? For 53 years, we have been knocking on the door of the European Union. They have kept us waiting for 53 years. Many others have come and gone after us. In my opinion, the decision lies with the nation. If the nation decides this, then all of those countries that have faith in democracy should respect it.
Just moving on now, and this is particularly for our Arabic audience, there's been a mixed reaction to what's happened, particularly in the Middle East. We saw official media in particularly countries like Egypt and Syria and even the United Arab Emirates. Their official newspapers printed the next day that the coup had succeeded, that Erdogan had either fled to Germany or gone somewhere. At least I can confirm you're not in Germany. We are here in Ankara. But what is your response to that? Why do you think they were so swift in essentially declaring your demise?
Well, since Friday, I did not leave the country. I have not left the country. I've been here. Germany and other places, it's out of the question. It simply isn't true. It's mere speculation. And it's, again, made-up news. It's fake news. And they're trying to portray Erdogan in a difficult situation according to their own reason or logic. But we have to be clear. Now, Sisi is a coup plotter, just like the people we have in Turkey right now. Sisi used weapons and arms to topple Mursi, that was democratically elected, and he was the chief of staff and minister of defense of Mursi, right? And this behavior of Sisi, can we respect it? Thousands of people were killed. He killed thousands. Can we respect that individual? That individual has nothing to do with democracy. He is not a democrat by any definition. Now, another step or stage would be Syria. Now, in Syria, Assad is a killer, is a murderer. 600,000 people, Syrians, were killed in Syria, and he still continues killing people. If people that have faith in democracy in the world take these positions seriously, then it's the own decision of the nations of those countries. But as we speak, Syria is a country that's longing for democracy, and they are looking forward to the time there will be reflected in the government. The same for Egypt, but not under the shadow of weapons, without weapons. In Turkey, it's the polar opposite, the complete opposite scenario. You have a president that got 52% of the vote of the people, Erdogan, and then the Gulens terrorist organization attempted what happened. And who will side with these people is known by us. We know it.
Were there other foreign
Even right
countries,
now,
do you think, that were complicit in this coup attempt? And if you do think there were other countries, which countries do you think they were?
there might be other countries involved as well. The Gulenist terrorist organization also has another superior mind, if you will. And I think the time will come when those connections will be deciphered. We have to be patient. And those superior minds are guiding them. The coup plotters followed the instructions from that superior mind. But I don't think that it will take long, because the judiciary is acting, and I think all of those connections will come to the light of day. So statements are being taken, and very interesting words are being used during those statements. And now we have had a series of publications of those statements. For instance, you have one individual who said that the head of the Gulens terrorist organization is the individual in Pennsylvania. He says that he never had one-on-one contact with the individual, but he says he knows full well that everything is being directed from there. I think similar statements will follow. We just have to be patient.
We have around 5 minutes left, so I want to squeeze in two questions, if you don't mind. The first, what was unique about this coup attempt was not just the unity of the people, but also the means in which they combated and resisted this coup, even yourself. What was iconic, I remember I was in the studio watching at the time where you had your iPhone FaceTiming. Now, a lot of your critics and opponents say that it is ironic as far as they're concerned that you use new media even though new media has come under attack. What is your response to that, these accusations that for some reason they believe that there isn't free press in Turkey or that you have some sort of vendetta against the press?
Well, Jamal, as far as I know, you would be in a position to know if the media, if the press in Turkey is free or not, because Al Jazeera, of course, has people in offices here in Turkey. I have never been against media, and there have been numerous insults and libels against my family, and those outlets continued broadcasting. But in this incident, even them said that they were on the side of the president, because that direction would also doom them, would also be the end of them. And in Turkey, the freedom of expression, I have always supported the freedom of expression in Turkey to its fullest degree and extent. However, freedom of expression should not turn into a tool of attacking other people's freedom of expression. It doesn't give you the right. You need to remain within your own space of freedom of expression. You should not overreach. Insult is never freedom. Criticism, of course. I have always defended these points. I'm still defending these points. I will continue doing so in the future.
My final question to you, Mr. President, is this, and it's a personal one. You lost a very dear friend of yours. We saw you at his funeral. This coup attempt, you managed to flee with your life with a few minutes. Are you scared for your life?
Well, what we are supposed to do is take measures, and we will take measures, and the rest is the decision of Allah.
The decisions, but how do you feel?
Yesterday I was in Istanbul. We were initially supposed to have this interview in Istanbul with you, but then I had to quickly leave Istanbul to attend meetings here in Ankara. So I came to Ankara, and we're having this interview with you in Ankara. Where are we? Well, we are in Ankara in the presidential complex, and last night I had the president of Georgia here. I welcomed him. We had a meeting with him. Today we had the National Security Council meeting, which was then followed by the Council of Ministers meeting. And in a short while, the outcome of the Council of Ministers meeting will be held in a press conference setting. So all of our ministers are here. We're working. We have a lot to do, and we will never allow the peace in this country to be broken, to be shattered. And we will also shortly have a video conference to address the people in squares and in the streets across different parts of the country. Therefore, there is no concern. I am in office with all of my friends and colleagues. We are continuing our march. Nobody should have any concerns.
Defiant as ever, Mr. President, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
I would like to also thank Al Jazeera for being very sensitive about the issue.
I would like to thank our viewers for being so patient with us, particularly after the delays that we've experienced. We will continue to cover all the unfolding events, truly historic events taking place in Turkey. So stay tuned across the network. You can get more information on our website, www.aljazeera.com, aljazeera.net for the Arabic. For now, back to you in Doha.
Jamal El-Shayal there in Ankara, speaking live to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. A wide-ranging interview with President Erdogan there, interrupted a couple of times, but taking us from the moments that failed coup began on Friday night and into the early hours of Saturday and into the events that have happened since. The key line, perhaps, President Erdogan saying, we will remain inside a democratic parliamentary system. We will never step back from it, however, whatever is...